What's up, Slurvers? Welcome to Wednesday. We got a split slate today, so I'm here with your early slate picks. It's not my favorite slate for cash because there's some, not some great pitching that I don't feel comfortable with the pitching as far as cash goes. Let's put it that way. But I think you can do it, especially on FanDuel. Prices are pretty soft there, I think, and only needing one pitcher is a big help. So here are some of my best picks for DraftKings and FanDuel. We got a game in Coors early, which I'm kind of excited because that means we don't have Coors late, and that's just better for me. I don't know, I like it better. But we're projecting that Tony Walters is in the lineup against Archer today, and he makes a nice bargain way on DK to get some exposure to that game at 2.9. He's 3.0 on FanDuel. I'm not sure what to think about this game. I have way too much interest in Archer on DK in GPPs, but that's my problem, not yours. So at a similar price on FanDuel, you can get Contreras against Cologne. He's 3.7 on DK, so more expensive there, but he's the same price, 3.0 on FanDuel. I much prefer Contreras in that spot, assuming you just aren't dying for the Coors exposure. And then we got Russell Martin facing off against Patrick Corbin, who's just terrible against righties in Arizona. 4.1 on DK is pretty expensive. I mean, I don't hate it, but, he's expensive. 3.1 on FanDuel, right there in the same range as the other guys. Kind of makes it for a tough decision, honestly, for me, between Contreras and Martin. Kind of depends what else we do with your lineup, I suppose. First base is not really going to help with that decision, though, because I got guys from both of those teams to recommend for you as well, particularly on FanDuel. We got Rizzo against Cologne for 5.3 on DK, crazy, and 3.6 on FanDuel. I mean, 5.3 isn't like totally crazy, actually. 3.6 is just crazy low. I think Rizzo has as much upside as any batter in the matchup with Bartolo. And then there's also E5, although he's a little bit less friendly on FanDuel. Edwin Encarnacion, I mentioned Corbin sucks against righties. 4.9 on DK, I really like his price there. If you're going to spend up on a first baseman, then I think that's the way to go. 4.8 on FanDuel, it's kind of rough. I would pretty much restrict that to a Toronto stack. Wouldn't use him as a one-off at that price. Then if you want to go a lot cheaper, surprisingly, we got Miguel Cabrera against Irvin Santana, still real cheap. It's getting kind of familiar refrain at this point, me talking about Miggy, but we all know that he's an amazing batter, and yeah, he's had like a 3 or 4 game cold streak. Maybe that'll continue, maybe it won't. 3.8 on DK, 3.3 on FanDuel is a price at which I'm willing to take the risk and find out. So I mentioned I'm a little conflicted on Coors because there's pitchers that are better than often are in there. Archer is kind of an enigma, and so is Jorge De La Rosa in many ways. Primarily, he's better at Coors than he is away from Coors, which is just a very strange thing for any pitcher. But that makes me a little bit concerned about using a guy like Logan Forsythe when I have to pay $5,200 for him on DK and $4,900 on FanDuel. I mean, that's a lot of money to be spending there. But, it is Coors. It is a lefty-righty matchup. Jorge does struggle more with righties than with lefties. And his numbers at Coors aren't exactly, pristine either. But there are other options, a guy like Devin Travis, assuming he makes the lineup, and especially if he's batting first against Patrick Corbin. 4.1 on DK, 3.4 on FanDuel, significant discount on both sites. Like him a lot. And on DK, I really like Brian Dozier against Verlander, who, is not a guy that I rush out to target, but Dozier is 2.6 on DK. I mean, that's just kind of a silly price there. It's 3.9 on FanDuel. That's more reasonable. That's actually kind of expensive, but I think the truth is somewhere in the middle there, and that 2.6 is a great price if you're not playing Verlander. These sites are really messing me around with their price. In third base, I got pretty much separate recommendations. Jake Lamb, I expect to be extremely chalky on FanDuel at 3.5 against Stroman. I love Lamb just generally, and especially today. 5.4 on DK makes him a really tough guy to fit in your lineup, but it's not like I think he's going to have a bad game, but just that price is very prohibitive. Similar story again of Chris Bryant against Cologne, although I think he's more reasonable on DK at 4.6. I don't think that's a terrible price. 3.8 on FanDuel. It's a little more expensive than Lamb. I think I would just take Lamb and not think about it too much in cash. Over on DK, I really like Sano. Kind of similar situation to Dozier. 3.3 is just too cheap for Sano, and Verlander is good, but he's better against lefties actually, and there's definitely the possibility for him to give up some runs and stuff. And Sano is not a third baseman on FanDuel, so forget it. And then there's also Danny Valencia against Doug Fister. So Valencia is just a bit too cheap on DK, I think. He's 3.0, he's 3.2 on FanDuel. I'd stick to the other guys that I mentioned first. But on DK at 3.0, I think he's definitely worth consideration if you're not going Sano for whatever reason. There's only a couple guys I really want to consider at shortstop, and that starts with Troy Tulowitzki. I like Toronto a lot against Corbin, especially the righties, and the righties happen to be some of their best hitters. 4.0 on DK is a fair, if not special, price. 3.1 on FanDuel is simply too cheap. Then there's also Lindor against Kennedy. I don't love targeting Kennedy, but I don't hate it either. 4.2 on DK, 3.8 on FanDuel. Lindor is just an excellent player, and I think he can take advantage of Kennedy enough to pay off what's a pretty reasonable salary for a guy of his caliber. I mean, maybe not on FanDuel. I'd rather go Tulo on FanDuel, but on DK, it's at least a toss-up. And in the outfield, I do like some Coors guys a good bit here. It's kind of tough to really put them. I mean, I don't hate any of them, especially, Blackman, Cargo, blah, blah, blah. I'm not mentioning them specifically. On DK, I rather like Steven Souza as one of the cheaper right-handers likely to go up against Jorge De La Rosa at 3.9. He's 3.8 on FanDuel, which leaves me not terribly excited there. And then there's Geyer and Pierce. Pierce is not an outfielder on DK, and he's really expensive, so I'll pass on his first game back from injury. Geyer's 4.9 on DK, so he's not cheap either, but he's only 3.9 on FanDuel, and Pierce is only 3.5 there. So I definitely would take the chance on Pierce at 3.5 on FanDuel. It's like 5 something on DK. And Geyer is in play on both sides, even though I like his FanDuel price a lot better. I also like Junior Lake against Corbin, and don't be mistaken, this is more of a price thing, and I especially like him on FanDuel, where he's only 2.2. He's 3.6 on DK. I don't totally hate it, but I might instead go for a guy like Cameron Maybin against Irvin Santana. Kurt Suzuki, while he threw somebody out the other day, is not the best at that. And Maybin's only 3.2 on DK, and he's a decent base stealer, probably more than you realize. He's also 3.2 on FanDuel, though, so that just doesn't really thrill me. But we do have guys like Jason Hayward against Bartolo. I'm not real excited about this play either. Hayward has been very mediocre at best, but 3.4 on DK and 2.9 on FanDuel, kind of middle of the order there of a team expected to score a bunch of runs, so I definitely don't mind it. And last but not least, going back to Detroit, I like Justin Upton, especially on DK at 3.1, even cheaper than Cameron Maybin, although Maybin has the order spot in his favor. Upton is 5th or 6th, I think, and Maybin's up 2nd. And on FanDuel, he's 3.0. I don't hate it, but I don't love the price either. But I don't know, I think I still like him better than Hayward at like 2.9. So that's it for my cash game cornerstones for today, which is a Wednesday, and it's July 20th. I get the date right sometimes when I look at the clock. Come on back by later. We'll definitely have some Dong Finder picks up for you, in addition to our written content about cash games, stacks, and pitchers. And then, of course, today at 5 Eastern, we have the Expert Chat Live, where Max, Adam, and I will get on with Eric and talk through these games, make some great lineups with you. And it's fun. I always love the expert chats. I'm an expert chat junkie myself, even though I'm taking part in it. I learn a lot in it. I get a lot of good info that helps me nail down my lineups in that last hour. So come on back by later, slurb.com. We'll be hanging out in the tailgate today. It's free to sign up. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm Steve. Good luck tonight, guys.